Hey everyone. In today's lesson, I would like you to begin by opening up the Epic Launcher, which we're going to be using less and less now that Fab has come out. But I wanted to make sure that I gave you some instruction on how to get Fab working with your Unreal setup. So start by opening up the Epic Launcher and go to the Library tab, like this, and not in the My Projects field, but in the Library field, just type the word Fab. And you'll see this here, Fab UE plugin. What you're going to want to do is click Install to Engine and select from this drop-down whichever version of Unreal you're using. Now, I have already done this for 5.4, which is why 5.3 is the only one that appears here. But when you do this, the drop-down might list other Unreal versions if you have more than one installed on your computer. Regardless, whichever version you're using, which could be 5.3 or 5.4, make sure that you choose the appropriate one and then click Install. And that will take a little bit of time, and once that's finished, you can confirm by going to your Downloads tab and making sure that it says you have no tasks. That way you'll know it's finished, okay? Now, I'm going to close the Epic Launcher, and we're going to go back to the game we've been working on, so I'll load that up. Okay, so here we are once again in the template level. I'll hit play just to make sure everything is working. Here is our character. That explosion might have been a little loud, sorry about that. We can tweak that later. But it seems like everything's working. We can walk, we can run, we can jump. All right. So what I'd like to do now is what we were attempting to do in class, but for whatever reason the computer was just crashing. So we'll navigate back to the content directory and go to the File menu and make a new level. Use an empty level and hit Create. And let's begin by doing a save level as, save current level as, and I'm going to call it something like Open World, or whatever you want to call it. And I want to make sure that this is saved into the same folder, right? The same folder as the regular third-person map. And if you forgot where that is, it's right here under third-person maps, okay? And you're going to save it right beside the template map. So Open World, we'll hit Save. And then we're going to go to Project Settings. I have it docked right now, but in case you need a reminder how to get there, we'll go to Settings, Project Settings, open that up again. Click Maps and Modes, and just make sure that you pop it into these two places there. So let me go highlight that. It's in third person, Maps, and Open World. We'll have that highlighted, and I'll pop it in as the Editor Startup map, and also as the game default map. That way, when we close Unreal and then reopen it subsequently, it will load that map first. Okay, so this would be a good time to make a sky. So let's go to the window menu, and excuse me, I've got to get my screen recording controls out of the way sometimes. And we're going to get the Environment Light Mixer. Set this to Normal plus Advanced, and then just click all these buttons in order. And since the last thing that you clicked was Height Fog, that is selected in the World Outliner. So we can just do a search right here, VOL, until you see Volumetric Fog, and I'm going to suggest that you turn that on for now. We might have to play with the settings of the volumetric fog if it's obscuring our landscape too much. All right, so we'll do that, and I'm going to save my level, and I might as well hit Save All. Okay, so now let's go get a height map. I'm going to go online here, and I'm going to search for Unreal Engine height map, and the one that I advocate using is the one from Manticorp. And you'll see that right here, 16-bit grayscale PNG Heightmap generator for Unreal. Okay, so I was in here yesterday and I found, I think this is where I was. This might have been someplace like in Colorado or something. Where am I? Yeah, I'm somewhere in the United States. You can go anywhere in the world, really. I mean, just you can explore this and find some really interesting terrain. And I would recommend going with your default UE5 sizes. For our computers, maybe 2017 by 2017 would be a good idea for your laptop. And that's going to be, kind of small-ish. So find a good spot. You can also try it, and we'll see how the performance is with 4033 by 4033. You can do a full 8K landscape, which is gigantic. It's like, something like 148 square kilometers. 123 kilometers. But I think I'm going to go with 4033 by 4033 today. And I'm just going to look around here to see if there's anything else that looks interesting. You can drag the map around. There's a little river up there. Yeah, maybe I'll center it right on there. Should also be some flatlands, right? Because we need the character to be able to walk around. So let me reconsider. Hold on. Let's say, yeah, maybe this, okay? And then we'll simply hit Create Heightmap, and that will take a moment. And then it should go to your downloads, so we can go ahead and click Save. And now it's there, okay? Just leave it in your downloads folder for the time being and leave this window open because we're going to need to make use of some of the information down here. Okay, so I'll go back to my Unreal editor and into landscape mode. And rather than create new, we're going to do import from file. You can see this might be empty for you, but it still remembers that I used the basalt rock the last time I had this open, and I was trying to demonstrate this to you. So you can put any starter content material there for now, just as a placeholder, because we're going to be creating better materials later. But what we want to do to start is click Import from File, and then the Heightmap file, we have to navigate to it just by clicking on the navigation button right here, 3 dots. And in Downloads, this is the one that I just downloaded. And I'll hit Open. And you're going to see a wireframe. And it's probably not going to be scaled exactly right. Okay, but it's going to be approximately right. That's why I left that web page open so that I can read this information down here. The Z should be 447.06. So we're going to scale the Z. I already forgot. 44706. Okay, and then the X and Y are going to be the same value, and it has that there as 1505.15. So we'll go 1505.15, hit enter. And here we've got our gigantic landscape. If you need to speed up your camera speed, you probably are going to need to speed up your camera speed to fly around here as fast as you're going to end up needing to. So if you want to, you just go up here and just, turn this up. Makes life a little easier, okay? Okay, so once I'm happy with that, I can just click Import. And in a moment, we should have an interesting little landscape here. So we'll give it time to compile shaders and everything, and there we go. What I'd recommend at this point is to find a spot that you can put a player start, something relatively flat, like right around here. So let's get out of landscape mode, go back into selection mode, and get a player start and just drop that in there. And we're going to zoom into that and make sure that it doesn't say bad size. Okay, and it doesn't, so we're in good shape. If you want, you can pull it up a little bit and then hit end just to make sure that it's snapped to the ground. So now if I hit play, here we are in our really, really cool landscape, which is based on whatever part of the United States I was in when I obtained this height map. This basalt material is actually not horrible, but we're going to do what's called a layered landscape material. So let me just scroll up here. I want to just climb this hill because I want to see if I can get a better view of the surroundings. Let's see. This is pretty big. Of course, she's going to need footstep sounds and other types of sounds. Okay, I want to get way up here and just see if I can get a better view of our surroundings. As big as this is, we could even put some background assets around the landscape that are much larger, like those background mountains that you've seen before. Okay, so I could keep going up. We do have the sound effect for that. Now, if you were to try to shoot at anything right now, unfortunately, the only thing that exists is the landscape. And you'll note that if I shoot the landscape, nothing really happens. That's because we haven't set the landscape to block the projectile. So we'll do that right now, okay? I'll select the landscape, make sure you're in selection mode. And let's go and search for collision, C-O-L-L. Right now it's set to block all, but I'm going to set it to custom. Give it a second. You can see because it's ignoring the custom collision channel that we created. All right, so I want it to block projectile. Clicking that, looks like it's thinking. So I'm going to give it a chance. I don't think it's crashed. Oh, there it goes. Okay, it just took a minute. And the projectile trace. And I'll wait for that. Okay, good. So now, if I go back into play mode, we should get a hit response when we shoot the terrain. Right? And of course, that's really loud when it's close to us. So we'll adjust that later. Okay, so I think we're in pretty good shape here, and I'll hit Save All. Save Selected. Okay, if you do not see the Fab button right here, right next to the Add button, if you don't see that, as soon as this saves, you're going to want to go into your plugins. So let me pause this until the save finishes, and I'll show you where to find it. Okay, so we're all saved. So if you don't see the Fab button, as I was saying a moment ago, go up to Settings again, and this time go to Plugins and search for Fab. And it will be there. You can see that mine has a checkbox next to it, but yours probably will not. So what you're going to have to do is to enable that plugin by ticking that checkbox, and then you're going to get a little message asking you to restart the editor. Okay, so that's normal. Anytime you activate or deactivate a plugin, you will have to restart Unreal. So go ahead and follow that when that happens, and allow your project to reload. And if you've done what I asked you to do for your maps and modes, you should be right back to where you started in your Heightmap level. Okay? Now, we're going to go to Fab. Let's first navigate back to my root content directory, make that a little smaller so I have more room. And I'm going to get some materials or some textures that we can use to make materials. And what I would recommend in this case, I think, and I'm still getting used to Fab myself, to be honest with you, is maybe do a search for Quixel. See what happens there. See, now this does not give me the link that I'm after. I want something that says materials and textures. So let's clear that out. And this time I'm going to take a different approach. I'll click Creators and see if I can find Quixel that way. Okay, so under Creators, let me search for Quixel. Okay, as soon as you see something like this that says Quixel, just click on it. Okay, now we are in the Quixel. This is a lot like Quixel Bridge, which no longer works, I'm afraid. If by any chance this box that says FBX is unchecked, please check it, okay? Because FBX is the native file format for Unreal Engine. It was a file format that was developed by the 3D modeling software and digital content creation software known as Maya. And FBX stands for the word Filmbox. Okay, but now you can see I can search for material and textures. So I'm going to go to that, and I'm going to add several to my project. So what we can do is we can search by category, for instance, nature and terrain. And let's start with just some ground material. So I'll go to ground. This is still not as fast as it could be. So I'm sorry, ground is too limiting. Let's go to, let's see, soil. Nature and terrain, what's going on here? Sort by relevance. Okay, we are in Quixel, and we'll go, let's search for forest floor. I'm doing this by memory because I know that those assets exist. That's weird that nothing's showing up here. Soil? Okay, I see what's going on here. These somehow disabled. So let's turn those all back on again. Gee. Yeah, I think that Fab is still got some growing pains happening here. So nature and terrain, and every time I switch it, those turn off. So make sure you just turn them back on, make our lives a little bit easier. Okay, so now we're going to go to ground. Looks like they stayed on that time. And yeah, that's just not enough variety. Let's look at soil. They turned off again. That's a little bit crazy. Come on, Quixel. You can make our lives easier than this. Okay, these will populate in just a second. Great. So now I'm going to look for something like that forest floor that we used in class. And I'm going to avoid using the search bar because every time I tried that, it seemed to clear these out. So let's see, stony soil. What does that look like? If you click it, it'll give you a little preview with some thumbnails. Yeah, I'm not loving that, so we'll go back. And of course, it snaps right back up to the top again. That's a bummer. Muddy ground. And these don't populate as fast as I'd like. Yeah. Soil ground. sand, mulch. I want something like forest floor, something grassy. Let's see, I might have to just choose arbitrarily right now because it's taking so long. So let's look at grassy soil and see what that looks like. You know what? That's not actually very bad. So when you add to project, you're going to have to choose a quality level here. So high quality is 8K, medium quality is 4K, and then low quality is 2K. So just to keep your computers from exploding, let's go with medium quality, which is 4K, and 4K does look good, plenty good. And I'll click Add to Project, and that'll take a second. Okay, now that that's in there, I might as well do a Save All. And that's not going to be the only example, the only material that I bring into here. If we wanted to, we could select our landscape right now and go back. We'll clear the search. Remember, I searched for collision earlier, and this basalt material was on there. So let's take this material from Quixel and change that. And this will take a little bit of time. So I'll pause the recording until it changes. Okay, it didn't take as long as I thought. Oh, but now, of course, it's doing an autosave. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I also disabled autosave, and that will hopefully prevent that from happening again. I want you to notice something here about this material. Do you see how there is what appears to be like a repeating? You can see it here, texture repeating, and it almost looks like it's in rows. This is known as texture tiling, and this is an undesirable quality when you're texturing large assets, especially things as big as landscapes. And this material that we downloaded from Quixel is obviously not set up to look good on a landscape. So what we need to do is we need to create our own material using the provided textures that will disguise this texture tiling. And there's more than one method for doing this, but I think that I will limit it to just one of them today and show you the other one on a different day. It's just a couple of different methods that you can use. So here in this same folder, I'll right click and I'll make a new material, and I'll call it, what was this material anyway? I forgot. My soil, or M underscore, beg your pardon, M underscore my soil. Sounds gross. So I'll open that up and dock it right there. We'll move the attributes node. And then I want to select all three of these textures and drag and hover over that tab and then drop them in there, just like you do with WAV files when you're making a sound cue. Okay, so when you're making a material, you start off with what's called your albedo texture. That's your base color. And a normal map, which we'll talk about. And this is a packed map. Quixel has changed their practice with regard to this packed map. It used to be what was called an ORD or ARD map, which included roughness, ambient occlusion, roughness, and displacement in these three channels, RGB. Now it's an ORM map, or ARM. You can use the A or O interchangeably for the red channel. So it's ambient occlusion, roughness, and metallic in this case. So the displacement can be found separately if you go to the Quixel website, if you need a displacement map. So what we're going to make use of here is, well, a couple of things. All right, let's start with a node called Landscape Layer Chords, like so. That's like a texture coordinate node. It's just meant for landscapes. We can pull off of this and type multiply. And then the B of the multiply, if I right-click it, we can promote it to a parameter, and I can name that parameter UV scaling. UV scaling, okay? And that can be connected to the UVs of all three of these texture samples. Now, in case you don't remember what normal maps do, if I take the RGB out, for example, and I plug it into the normal input, wait for that to compile, you can see that this gives it, some information about how light is meant to interact with that for self-shadowing and that sort of thing. The base color defines essentially what that material looks like, and this will wait on this for a second. But the reason that it looks so smooth right now is because I've taken the UV coordinates and I've multiplied them by 0, so there's really nothing to see. Let's set that to something like 0.25 for a moment, and now we can start visualizing this texture, right? We can also change what it's projected onto if we want, all right? So let me disconnect the base color for a moment. Now you can really see what the normal map does. That's an absolutely flat plane, but the normal map is what gives it like fake shadows and makes light interact with it as if it had real geometry. And normal maps are just part of the whole world of what we call physically based rendering for materials, PBR materials. That's what we're making. If I wanted to, I could also connect this to the ambient occlusion input, this to the roughness input, and then the blue channel to the metallic input, okay? And this is just the material as it is, okay? And of course, we can change the scale as needed. So 0.125, for example, or 0.5, okay? When you're dealing with normal UVs and a scalar parameter like this, it's counterintuitive, because if you, for example, start with the number 1, and you want, so what that means is that this texture is tiling once, and it will be, per given unit area, which is, I think, 2 by 2 meters. All right, so I want to just discuss here for a moment how the UV scaling will affect the apparent size of this texture. Right now, it's tiling once for every basically 2 by 2 or 2 square meters. Most of the Quixel textures are a sample of a 200 by 200 centimeters or 2 by 2 meter area. So if I were to type a larger number like 2, it would tile twice as often, right? And you can see that the texture gets smaller. If I type a 4, even smaller. But now we start seeing the tiling even on this preview mesh. So let's set that back to 1. If we want the texture to get larger, we could just type fractional numbers like 0.5 or 0.25 or even 0.125 or 0.05, whatever we need. Okay, you can see that's really zoomed in. Now, if this was an 8K texture, it would probably still look good, but you can see it's starting to pixelate at that scale. So let's just set that to 1 for the time being. Okay, I'll apply this, and I'll hit save. And I want to show you what we can now do. If we take the material that we've made and right-click it, I can choose this option, Create Material Instance. And the nice thing about material instances is that when we edit their parameters, we can see it changing on the whatever the material is applied to, we can see it changing in real time. So I'm going to replace the material that's on there now with this material instance of the material that we made, and that'll take a moment. Maybe I'll pause and wait for that to get done. Be right back. Okay, so it doesn't really look any different, but if I double-click the material instance now, I like to drag it off. I don't like it docked. I like it like this so that I can kind of see the landscape at the same time. And we want to be able to see our parameters, right? So if these are twirled up, you can twirl them down. I have one parameter right now, which is called UV scaling. So what I can do is I can change that and see in real time what it's doing. What I want to do here is get down to like ground level, because this is going to be more like how the character sees it. So I can get a better idea for what type of scale would work, okay? Now, I'm only estimating this right now, and I'm doing this primarily just to show you the versatility of a material instance as opposed to a full material. If I were to edit that value in the full material, I'd have to hit apply, and then it would take a little bit of time and calculate that, and only then would you see the change. But in material instances, any parameter that you create, you're going to see the change happen instantaneously. So I'm going to set this back to the default of 1 for the time being and save my material instance. So I can close that. And the reason that I'm closing it is because I'm going to add something else to this material to help disguise. Excuse me, I opened the instance by mistake, and I still have the main material docked here. I'm going to add something else to this to disguise the tiling. So let's disconnect these UVs. I'm Option-clicking or Alt-clicking to do that. Highlight all of this and move it over. In this empty space, you can right-click and type texture. What's the word I'm thinking of? Texture variation. Okay, and you can see it'll appear there. We are going to be making use of some of these, but you can see it does have a UVs input. So we'll take our existing UVs and plug it into that. And you'll notice that it has a shifted UVs output that can be connected to these texture samples. And the next thing I want to do is to promote some of these pins to parameters that I can adjust in my material instance, I beg your pardon. So variation scale. Now, by the way, before you do this, it's good to hover over it and see what the default value is. This one has a default value of 3.24. So I'll right-click, promote to parameter, and the nice thing there is that it'll preserve the name. And I remember that the default value was 3.24, so I want to enter that. And that'll be a decent starting point. Variation levels, the default value is 6. Right-click, promote to parameter. Set the default value to 6. And you can even, if you forget, you can double-check. Heightmap influence we're going to skip because I don't have a Heightmap plugged into this. And the mask channel it pertains to the Heightmap, so we don't need to use that. We're also going to skip use dither because that generally doesn't look very good. These are, SB stands for static bool, and we want to set these to true. So I'll right-click this, promote it to a parameter. Random rotation and scale, yes, I do want that, please, so I'll set it to true. And high quality edge comparison, we'll right-click that, promote it to a parameter, like so, and set that to true as well. Okay, now I'll hit apply and save. And now when I edit the material instance, you can see there are going to be more parameters to edit, okay? We just have to turn them on. So make sure that you twirl down all those disclosure triangles and enable all of these parameters for messing around with, okay? I'm not going to get into the technical definitions of each one of these. I'd rather have you do it just kind of by sight, frankly, for now. Let's begin with scaling the UVs, and let's actually play the game for a moment. Okay, so the ground looks large to me, okay? And I think I need a larger number for the UVs so that it textures or tiles more often. So let's try maybe a 3. And I'll go back into play mode and see if that's a little bit better. It could even be smaller than that. So let's go 4 on the UVs. Getting there. Let's try 6. Okay, I don't hate that. Now, you don't see the tiling probably because we are so close to it, but nevertheless, another thing that you can do is just play with the parameters, and except for the UVs, of course, once you have those set, and just watch the landscape, okay? You can see you're going to get some random offsets and randomness added to it. Now you can see this, it looks kind of like it's swimming, but as soon as you stop moving it, those little blobs, I think they're an optical illusion. They just sort of go away. So you can randomize your texture this way. And let's do offset variation. You can see what that's doing. It's scrambling it. And let's change the random scale variation. You just do this according to what you think looks good. Okay? And all right, so I think that we're in pretty good shape for this layer, so I'll save that. Okay, so now when I play, I don't see any tiling, and this looks to be about the right size for the player's perspective, okay? That looks a little weird right there. Almost looked like a little circle. Let's see if I encounter that again. Yeah, let's see if we can take care of that. I want to find an example of that on the landscape somewhere if I can. I'm going to reduce my camera speed. Let's go to the player start. So it was somewhere around here. Remember, I was looking in this direction. See if I can find it. And even if I can't find it, that's all right. I'm just going to stir the pot a little bit one more time. So we're going to go into the instance one more time. Open that up. Pull it off. And I'll just scramble this a little bit more. Yeah, it was that parameter, I think. Let's set that back to 6, which was its default. The variation scale, once again, can be your choice. Until you see a look that you like. And we can save that, go back into play, and we'll see. Okay, that's sufficiently scrambled in my opinion. I'm not seeing anything repetitive. I am noticing that there's a little bit of a glare. There's a little bit of a glare on the landscape that I don't love. So what I could do is go into the original material, my soil, and promote specular on the result node. Okay, promote that to a parameter, specular, and just leave it at its default value of 0. Apply. And of course, that is going to be adjustable in the instance. So you notice there's no shine anymore. But if I open up the material instance, we could watch that change in real time, activate specular, and decide how shiny we want the landscape to be. I don't want it to be shiny, so I'm going to set it to 0, or maybe something close to 0, 0.1, 0.05. Maybe 0.05 is not so bad. Okay, so we'll leave that alone for the time being, and I'll do a save all because I disabled autosave. And I'll pause this, and I'll be right back as soon as everything is saved. Okay, so we're all saved, and this is just fine as a base layer. But remember, the purpose of this video was to teach you how to make what's called a layered landscape material. So we're going to have to go back to Quixel and get more textures for the different layers. So I'm thinking that we're going to have, maybe some darker soil in certain places, maybe some rock that we can use for the tops of the hills or the mountainous parts, and also some snow. Maybe it's snowy up on top of these mountains. Okay, so let's go back to Fab, which is still up there, and we'll go back a level here. And let's go back to Materials and Textures. Yeah, this is really inconvenient having to do that every single time. Okay, and I'd like to be able to just search for, let's see, I'd like to be able to search for rock, but I don't trust it, so I think I'm just going to scroll until I see something I like. I want something kind of rough, something that looks like bare rock on a mountain. Layered rock cliff. Okay. That looks like it could be good. Okay, and let's just take a little preview of that. Yeah, I think that should do. And again, I'll do medium quality just so that 4K is plenty, I think, for this. Add that to our project. And that's in there. And let's go back to Fab. Scroll backwards. And of course, it takes me to the very top again. Annoyingly. Forest floor. This is one that I was thinking of using. Okay. Forest floor. Yeah, that looks fine. Medium quality. Add to project. And then I want some snow. I was thinking maybe even some cobblestone. Well, we'll think about that later. I was thinking maybe cobblestone in case we want to put some roads in here. But maybe we'll save that for another day. But I do want that snow. So we'll go back to Fab one more time. And do I dare search for snow directly? Let's see. Okay, well, that's not so bad. How about trampled snow, dirty snow, snow gravel, snow-covered ground, lots of snow. Actually, I'm glad that worked, and I'm glad that it didn't reset the filters here. So let's go with dirty snow. I like that. And medium quality is fine. Add to project. Okay, so I now need to do a save all because all of these are in different folders. So if I go back to content, there's now going to be a folder called Fab somewhere in here. Inside of there are megascans, surfaces, and then all those textures downloaded to separate folders. None of them are saved. So I'm going to do a save all and pause the recording before I do that so that you don't have to wait. I'll be right back. Okay, so now what we need to do is to create what's called a layered landscape material. So maybe I'll make another folder here and I'll just call it landscape. And inside there, we'll make a new material. Right click and we'll make a new material and I'll call it M_landscape. Like so. And we can open that up. And interestingly, what we can do is we can set up each layer the same way that we set up our randomized soil. In fact, so much so that I am going to just copy all of this, highlight those. Maybe I will include the specular. Just copy, Control-C, and I'm going to paste them. I'm going to paste them right into this graph. Okay, so that's going to be one layer. I'm changing my mind. I'll control the specular separately. But what we need in addition to this is a node called Landscape Layer Blend. Landscape Layer Blend. Okay, and we're going to need, let's see, let's say 1, 2, 3 of these, so we can duplicate it. I need 3 of them. Actually, before I duplicate it, let me delete these 2. Because we're going to have a base color, a normal map, and an ORM for each layer. What I want to do is I want to add array elements to this so that it has 3. So it already has 1 pin, but we're going to go like this. And you can see that says layer none. I'm sorry, this was the output pin, but this is the input pin. So we're going to do 2 more. And each one of those we're going to give a name. So the first one, oh, actually, don't we have 4 layers? Maybe I'll do 1 more, okay? So we want to twirl down all of these disclosure triangles where it says index and give each one a name. We'll start this one as, let's say, what do I really want? Let's have this be the rock layer. So I'll call it rock. And this should be left to LB weight blend. And the preview weight is going to be 0.25. Because what you want to do is, depending on how many layers you have, just divide that into 100 and set the preview weight as close as you can so that it adds up to as close to 100 as it possibly can. So if I had 5 layers, then I would have set that to 0.2 exactly. You get the idea. And it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be close enough. And it only affects the preview when you see everything blended together on top of the preview mesh here. So we've got rock, and the next one, maybe I'll do forest floor. These can have spaces. Set the preview weight to 0.25. Oops, I scrolled my mouse. 0.25, enter. Not negative 0.25, come on. 0.25. There's that. Okay, click off of there. And we're going to go to the next one, and I'll just call it... I'll call it medium soil. I forgot what that texture was called. So medium soil, preview weight 0.25, enter. And then this next one will be snow, or will it be? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, index 3, of course, is the 4th index because it's starting at 0. So that'll be snow. And again, the preview weight, 0.25, like so. Great. Now that I've got that, I can duplicate this because I'm going to need 3 of them. And I'm hitting Control D or Command D, which is the shortcut for that. All right. So we need essentially this exact same setup, except for the fact that the textures are going to be different. So let's take this much of it, duplicate that, put it down here, duplicate it again, put it down here. Ultimately, we're going to need 4, right? So here's 3, duplicate it one more time, and put it down here. Okay. And we can leave all these hooked up the way they are for now because we're going to be able to adjust each layer separately. Now what I have to do is get the textures for each one of these. So the next one is, well, I can hook this up already. Actually, no, I can't because these are the wrong textures. So this actually, I should bring, I'm going to reorganize this a little bit. This is the medium soil. So this should be the 3rd layer. So let's grab all of that. I'm going to cut it. Get these 2, bring them up because they're going to use different textures. And then right here is where I'll paste the one that I already mostly have done. Okay. So our next task really is to bring in the remaining textures into this material that are not in there yet. So we're going to start with the rock, and we'll go back to our surfaces folder, and we're going to go get layered rock, and I'm going to select just the textures, just the 3 textures, not this material that they gave us, because that would have texture tiling, and we don't want that. Grab them, hover over our landscape material tab, and then just drop them in right here for your first layer. And organize them the way that we did before, like so. Okay. Now what we can do is take the shifted UVs and plug them into all 3 textures, like so. Now the thing is that this one is going to be base color. So I'll comment that out, base color, just so that we don't get confused. This one is going to be for the normal maps, so I'll comment that out, normal maps. And this one is going to be for the ARM or ORM, depending on what you prefer, so I'll call it ARM, just so that we know what to connect where, okay? And for now, we're going to connect the RGB out of this base color here to layer rock. We're going to connect this RGB out to layer rock. That's the normal map. And we're going to connect this one to layer rock, because all of that is rock, right? And these textures are now going to have to be different, so we'll delete those. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. Undo. That's the 3rd layer. So I might as well connect that 3rd layer. Medium soil base color. There's the normal map for medium soil. And here is the ORM or ARM for medium soil. Okay, so there's a couple here that don't have their textures yet. So this one is going to be the forest floor. I want to make sure that I have enough room for that. Hold on, my monitor just temporarily shut off. It'll come back. Okay, I just want to make a little room because I've got to bring them in here, and I don't want everything to look just too crushed together. So I'll pull that over a little bit. And I'll remind myself this is going to be forest floor. So I'll go back into my surfaces, go to forest floor, get the 3 textures, drag them up, hover, and drop them where they go. There's the albedo. Just put them in this order. Didn't mean to do that. Fold that back up again. Okay. So shifted UVs goes into all of these. And by the way, when we make our material instance, all of these are going to be separately adjustable. They don't all have to share the same properties for their corresponding layers. So here we've got the base color for our soil, and that's going to go into base color for the forest floor. This one is going to go into forest floor for the normal map. And this one is going to go into forest floor for the ARD. And then we've got one more layer to go right here. Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to get our snow, surfaces, dirty snow. And oh, there's more textures here. There is a base color. What is this? This is, I don't know what that is. Interesting. So there's a base color, normal map, and yeah, I don't know what that last texture is, but we'll be able to tell once we bring it into the material editor. So let me just drop these in and figure out what's what. Okay, this one is the base color, okay, because it's got the B at the end. That's obviously the normal map. That's obviously the ORM, but this one here, usually it will say what it is right here, but you know what? I'm not going to use it because we're not using any other textures for any of the other layers. So we'll plug our shifted UVs into each of these texture samples. And this will work fine. Okay, so we'll take RGB out, go to the layer blend, and that's going to be our snow base color, then our snow normal map. Oh, something's plugged into that. So somebody made a boo-boo. What happened there? I want to double check this. Okay, so we've got our first two layers plugged in. Forest floor, this is going to be medium soil. Just wanted to make sure what happened there. There's the normal map. I must have just missed. You can rewind and find out, I guess. Medium soil. And then we're going to do, lastly, our snow base color. Normal map for snow. And then we're going to do the ARD for the snow layer. And we're going to start plugging things into here. So the base color, this layer blend, can go into base color. The normal maps can go into the normal input. And the ARM, if we really want to get all of its settings, what we can do is we can pull off of here and type break and choose this option, break outfloat 3 components, okay? Because remember, it's ambient, occlusion, roughness, and metallic. So we had to separate those out. So this is going to be ambient occlusion. This is going to be roughness. And this is going to be metallic. And I think I'll promote specular to a parameter and just leave it at 0 because I don't want the landscape to be shiny. I suppose we could have done that another layer blend if I wanted to, just for the specular parameter, but I just don't think it's necessary. It would probably apply it globally to this entire landscape. So this is a layered landscape material, and believe me, they can get a lot more complicated than this, but right now, this should do. So we're going to hit apply and save. And now we're going to take a big step, okay? So let's go back to surfaces, into our landscape folder, and what we're going to do is select the landscape, right-click this and make a material instance, okay? And we are going to replace the material that's on there now with our instance, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. And now you're going to probably be a little bit alarmed at first because it's very likely that this landscape is going to turn black. Okay, so this time I'm not going to pause it. I'm just going to let you see that happen. Might take a second. Okay, this is normal. This is normal. Please do not worry. Okay, so that's going to happen when you apply your landscape material at first. But it's okay. We're going to go back into landscape mode and fix this. Go back into landscape. And this time what you want to do is you want to go into paint. You want to go into paint mode and get to where you can see the different layers down here. What we need to do is we need to create what are called layer info assets for these. And that's easy. All we have to do for each one is to click the plus button. You can see the tooltip that comes up that says create layer info. So you're going to want to use this one, weight blended layer normal, and just hit save and do the same thing for the rest of them. Okay, so this might take a little bit of time. Okay, there's that one. Now we're going to do forest floor. This is just lagging a little bit. Okay, forest floor, weight blended layer normal. Save. Okay. Wait for that to recover a little bit. Weight blended layer normal. Save. And then finally one for our snow. Doing the same thing 4 times. And these are going to go into a folder that it will create itself, okay? It's in the third person directory. Right next to maps, there's going to be open world shader assets. So let's select these, and we're going to, or I could just hit Save All. All right, so this time I'll do a Save All. And I'll pause this and let it save. Okay, now one other thing that you can do to ease the burden on your computer at this stage is to convert the landscape to nanite. And I'm only going to show you how to do this right now, but I'm not going to do it at the moment myself because this is going to be very time consuming. Go back into selection mode and make sure that you just click on the landscape or that it's clicked on here in the world outliner. And what you need to do is you have to then check this box, Enable Nanite, and then if anything is compiling, wait until that finishes, and then click Build Data. That may take a couple of hours, so I'm not going to bother doing that yet, but if you enable Nanite and build the data for the landscape, it is going to, it's a form of optimization. It's going to ease the burden on your GPU quite a bit, especially for such a large landscape. But now what we can do is we can go back into our landscape mode, and we can start thinking about painting some of these layers. Now, we want to be in the Paint tab like we are, and this is based on these edit layers. Now, I like to use this first layer just for the sculpt, just for the height map. So what I'm going to do is right-click it, hover over Clear, and get Paint All, and we're going to remove all paint from it. So I'll continue on that, and it's just going to be like the grid in a moment. Okay, we're all black again. That's fine, okay? And I'm going to lock that so I can't accidentally paint on it. But I will right-click, and I'm going to create a new layer. And this one I'm going to rename. So right-click it again, choose Rename, and we're going to type Paint, like so. And what I want to do in this case is I want to fill this layer with just the rock. Okay, so I can right-click, make sure that I've got the paint layer selected, not this one, but the paint layer selected, right-click on our rock, and just choose Fill Layer. Well, I'll take a moment. It's a big landscape. Okay, so there's our rock. Now, my thinking is that I want this to be looking good on the mountains, okay? So the tiling up close is not so bad, but the UVs for the mountains is just not right. So what we can do is we can go get our material instance for the landscape and start adjusting that. So that's in Fab, right here, Fab, Megascans, Surfaces. We made it here in our landscape folder, and I'm going to open up the instance, okay, and just drag it off like we've done before with simple materials. And I'm going to just enable everything here. Things are taking longer just because it's a complex, large landscape. And just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Okay, no, we're good. All right, so I'm going to start just with the UV scaling. And I think that that texture has to be larger. So if I want it to look like rock on those distant mountains, for example, I'm going to set this to a smaller value, maybe 0.25. You can see how you can see that texture better. I think it has to be even bigger, 0.125, even bigger, 0.05. And we're going to cover up all this stuff, the nearby stuff, with things like soil and grass anyway. So you're probably not going to see very much of this blown out stuff up close. So 0.025. I'm mainly concerned with what this looks like on the mountains themselves. Let me just speed up a little bit here. And did I go too far? I wonder if I did. So I'll go 0.2. 0.04. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And I'm not really seeing a whole bunch of tiling, but feel free to play with, your variation parameters if you want to, and get something that you think looks best. See what positive values are going to do for this. Look around. And was this the one that had the default value of, oh, that's 8. Which one had the default value of 6? I think it was one of these. I'm going to start over. Hold on a second. Didn't one of them have a default value of 6? I thought it did. Doesn't matter. Still going to, it'll readjust the UVs. I think we were using 0.04. Okay, that looks good. And I'm not, there it is, the variation levels. I guess that's what I missed. I think that actually does look best at 6. And, you're not obligated to really tweak this to a huge degree unless you feel like you want to just get creative with it. And that to me looks fine for the tops of the mountains. Okay? Now I'd like to do an experiment. So I'm going to go into play. And obviously up close here, that looks all pixelated and blown out. Okay? So we're going to paint a different material with a different UV scale into the lowlands where our character is going to be walking. All right, so we'll start by doing an experiment. Let's go back into select mode for just a moment because I want to zero in on the player start, okay? I'll zoom out just a tiny little bit here and go back into landscape mode once more. Okay, there it goes. And let's see, maybe the next layer will be forest floor. Okay, we can do them in order if we like. Now to paint this, all I have to do is select it. And now I've got a brush. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, and we can change the brush, the tool strength. I'm going to set this all the way up right now. And the brush size, you can see it changing, and then the fall off. Okay. So it's going to be full strength in the middle, and then it will blend out over the fall off distance. So especially if I've got the tool strength set to maximum. So I'm just going to click once right here. And see what that looks like. Okay, now I can adjust in my material here for this layer. Let's see. Layer parameters. Now, details, we can go, is that doing everything? Hold on a second. 0.04. Yeah, I want to be able to scale that differently than the rock. So let me do this. What we need to do is actually go back into the original landscape material, and we have to change the name of the UV scaling parameter for each layer. Okay? That way we'll be able to control them as independent parameters. So this one, I'll click and I'll type UV scaling, I'll modify the name and include the word rock. All of these are parameters already. Okay, so the next one is going to be forest floor, UV scaling, forest floor. We will have to apply this again. UV scaling, medium soil. And then finally, UV scaling snow. Okay, now I'll hit apply. And of course, the material instance is going to inherit all of that. So let's enable all of those settings now. And that way we can adjust the UVs for each layer the way we want, okay? So I'll go into play here for a second, and I'll find that little patch that we painted. It's not so little after all. Okay, so that I think needs to look smaller. Okay, so now what we can do is zoom way into there, and I will make sure that I'm adjusting the correct UV here. So let's type 4, make that small. That might be too small. Let's type 3, and I'll play test it again. Okay, that's not so bad. I think I like that. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to just start painting this. Now this is going to take some time, so what I would recommend that you do is take some time and be careful. Maybe you can use a larger brush size. I'm going to make that really, really big. And you can go ahead and just paint all the lowlands in your map. This is going to take time, okay? But anywhere you feel that it's not really a mountain, you can paint with that, okay? Now, another thing is that sometimes you're going to want to smooth these transitions, okay? And there is this smoothing mode that you can use. And what that will do, let me undo that. What that will do is it will apply smoothing between your inner radius and your outer radius. So if you want them to sort of blend together, you might have to do a smoothing pass when you're done, just so that it doesn't look like it has hard transitions, you know? Okay. Okay, but there's a lot of landscape here, right? So remember, we also have our medium soil. Let's go back into paint mode. Probably our medium soil is going to take a UV similar to the forest floor, so I'll type 3 so that it's similar. And maybe I'll just paint some right there and see what it looks like. Okay, that's not so bad. I'm going to hit undo and show you something else you can try. You can try some of these brushes if you want. Like this one. I'll make a pattern. Yeah, I don't like that. You can also do noise. Why is that not painting with full strength? Tool strength. I thought I selected noise. Oh, I see. Yeah, I need to be using the paint tool. All right, so I'm not super fond of these other modes, to be honest with you, and I'm also not very skilled with them. So I'm going to hit undo a few times until that patch goes away. Did a whole bunch of nonsense there. Okay, so let's change the fall off a little bit. And where is that? Setting. So we're in paint, tool strength. We're looking for brush size, or brush fall off, excuse me. I want to make the inner radius smaller. Now, if I paint this, you can see again we have a pretty hard edge, but if I undo that, you undo it, go back to this type of brush, excuse me, the tool strength doesn't have to be fully strong. So for example, if I want that to just sort of automatically blend, you can see now it's not replacing the texture that's there. I'll make this, I'll make this tool strength even weaker, okay? So if I just want to paint little bits of this, and I can make it stronger and stronger and stronger if I hold down the mouse button, okay? And then, of course, if you need to, you can go and do a smoothing pass all in here. And that, of course, is also subject to your tool strength. Okay, so if you want it to smooth more aggressively, you can increase the tool strength. And if you want it to smooth less aggressively, or if you want it to do more aggressive smoothing, then just set the tool strength higher. You get the idea, all right? But you ultimately want things to blend together nicely. Now, this is just like one small area. Let me look at this texture here. And it looks a little tiled, to be honest with you. So let's go with the medium soil. The UVs got screwed up. They're still set to 1, so let's go to 3. And we're going to go... what we really need to do is we need to rename. If we wanted to control all the different variation parameters, we would have to go back into the original material and add the name of the layer for each one of these, like I did for the UVs. So like variation scale, forest floor, variation levels, forest floor, random rotation and scale, forest floor, and so forth. Okay, so we could do that. I'm not going to do it on camera because it's going to take so long. But I would recommend that you take the time to do that, just so that if you need to, you can adjust the randomization. After all, that's the whole reason that we involve these texture variations in the first place. So you know what I think I might do is I'm going to do that right now while paused. And then when I come back, we'll be able to work on those layers with greater precision. Okay, so give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So I've gone through and I've added just the name of the layer for everything that's parameterized. So the UVs and all the variation parameters. This first layer, I just added rock to each of their names. You can do that by just clicking on the node and renaming it here. And you can see I've renamed these all forest floor, and these are all medium soil. And then down here, all the parameters are called snow, including the UVs. So if I hit apply, then our instance is going to inherit all that. And we can turn those on. And now we have a lot more control here over every layer. Although you will have to turn all of these on. Okay, not this stuff down here. That doesn't matter. Okay, so maybe I'm going to make this window a little larger now. Go back to my open world. So the last thing I was working on was this medium soil, and I didn't like the UVs, but I also didn't like the I want to randomize it a little bit more. So we're going to go medium soil. We've already got the UVs. Maybe I'll experiment 2. Let's go 0.5. Did I apply that in my... Oh, no, I didn't save my original. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so let's go with our medium soil variation levels. You can see that that's changing, but remember, that's the one that we liked at its default value of 6. And we're going to go medium soil here and randomize that a little bit more. That looks better already. Medium soil, these are just bools. And that's fine. This applies to everything, this texture variation, because it's using a noise texture. So that'll affect everybody. Okay, so this is just experimentation right now, just to find out what looks good. Okay, and here's our forest floor. I think that could be randomized a little bit more. And so forth. All right, so, you got a lot of painting to do, I'm afraid. Okay, so and then a lot of smoothing. But you just zoom way out and take your time and paint. Now there's going to be some foggy areas here. Okay, now if you're concerned about that in the short term, what you can do is go back to selection mode and just take your exponential height fog and just hide it by clicking on the eyeball. Okay, or you can select the exponential height fog in the level. I'm just going to redock this material instance. And you can start playing with some of the parameters, all right? So let's see what we can do. There's exponential height fog. We can play with the fog density. I kind of like a little bit of it in there. Height fog fall off. You can just see what this stuff does. Forget about the second fog for the time being. The fog max opacity, if I reduce that, it'll be a little bit see-through. How far away from you it starts, so let's make the fog denser again, but we can also push it away from our camera by increasing its start distance and the cutoff distance. Actually, I like that to go all the way out to the horizon. And let's reduce the opacity some more. Reduce the density some more. The nice thing about having the volumetric fog is that it really does enhance the light, because it gives the light something more interesting than empty space to just propagate through, which I think is very cool. So feel free to play with all of this stuff until you get a feel for what it all does. We can also Control L or Command L to change the lighting. And I'll remind you that if you don't like the size of the sun disk, I don't particularly love the size of the sun disk. Let's decide, first of all, if I want this to be a sunset someplace. I want to be able to see the sun. Maybe right there. Now I think that's too bright, so I'll go and select the directional light, go to the top, change its intensity. Let's try 1 lux. That's interesting. Let's try 0.25 lux. I don't want it to be super bright. And also I'll increase the source angle to make the sun disk itself larger. Okay, that's going to make it easier to see, regardless of where I place it. And remember, the clouds do move, okay? So when you're playing, if you pay close attention, you'll see that these clouds are moving. That is something you can control. And if you feel like it's too dark down in here or too light down in here, what you can do is you can play with the skylight. And it's got a separate intensity control, so we can go to intensity scale. If I set this to 0.125, it's going to get pretty dark down here. If I set it to 4, it's going to be pretty bright down here. So you can balance the daylight at the surface with the sky by changing the intensity scale of the skylight. So we'll set that back to 1 for now. Another thing, this will be the last thing that I describe right now, is you should probably add a post-process volume to your world. And to do that, you can just go up here and type post. Bring this post-process volume into your level, just drag it in. It doesn't really matter where it is, so I usually just zero out the location and then set it to infinite extent unbound. So search for INF until you see infinite extent unbound so that it covers your entire world. And there's some things that you can do to improve the look in here. For example, I like to set the bloom from standard. You can see this better when the sun's in view. From standard to convolution. Okay, that makes things look a little prettier. And you can play with things like, the color temperature, the exposure. I like to set the metering mode to manual. And apply physical camera exposure should be on, and then exposure compensation, you can set this to whatever pleases you, okay? And again, balance that against with your skylight and so forth, just to get the mood that you want. Now I think that it's too dark down here, but I do like what it did to the sky. Let me go to the color temperature. If I can find it. Temperature type. I'm going to change it from white balance to color temperature. And we can make it warmer or we can make it cooler. Whatever you like. I think a sunset looks warm, so I'm going to reduce this value a little bit. That's kind of nice. And now my skylight, I'm going to turn the intensity up. So we'll clear our search and we'll turn that up. Intensity scale, let's set it to 2, 3, 4. Just try different values until you like it. And there's probably a way to control the color temperature here as well. Let's see. I'll search for temperature or white balance. Let's see. Maybe not, but I know for sure that you can change the light color just using this color picker. So let's warm that up this way. And you can make it colder. You can make it whatever you want, okay? But, and I'm colorblind. I probably have no place doing this at all. But that way it's a little bit more in keeping with this sunset vibe that we've got going on. So let's go back into play. And you can see we've got some stuff painted on the ground already. And you can change different areas. You know, we can go back and into landscape mode. I forgot to show you the snow. And I think that the snow should go like at the mountain tops. So still in this paint layer. Now let's select our snow and go paint tool, tool strength. I'm not going to turn it all the way up. And let's see. Okay, so we're painting the snow on there. You can have as much fun with this as you like. You can be a little sloppy even at first and then just do a gigantic smoothing pass over everything. But even that snow, I don't think that the UV scale is good. I think that I want to see more detail from a distance. So I think that the texture has to be larger. And of course, we can edit that in our material instance, now that we've made all the parameters named. So we're going to go UV scaling snow, and let's go 0.125, even less, 0.05. I can start to see some of that dirty snow, 0.02. Yeah, from a distance, I think that actually looks nicer. So you can have snow up on your mountains. Just at the tippy tops, I think, is probably best. I'm not being careful right now, but if you want to, you can be as careful as you like. Later, this landscape is going to be even more amazing because we're going to have foliage and that sort of thing too. Now, if you want to have less to do, you don't have to do a 4K landscape. You can do one that's smaller when you go to that Manticorp thing and just make this a smaller landscape if you don't want to have to do this much painting. And this is truly gigantic. I mean, to walk from one end of this to the other is going to definitely take some time. And it's going to be kind of Skyrim-like, if you know what I mean. Now, if you make a mistake, what I can do is I can right-click on the paint layer and clear paint the experiments that I did. So I can get rid of the forest floor that I've painted, get rid of that. I can get rid of the medium soil, because I was just experimenting with the UVs and the randomization. Those were just experiments. And get rid of the snow. Now we're left with just our base layer, which was the rock that we got, that we did first, okay? So I would say decide what your base layer is going to be, get that right, and then do some experiments, clear them out, and then start for real. And I guess that's really it for the time being. So one final thing, try to do all your painting in the same layer, because the blend tool will only work, okay? When you're in the, not the blend tool, but the smoothing tool will only work if all the paint is done in the same layer. Otherwise, I would make different layers for each. You can do that. You can make different layers for each type of paint, but if you're going to want to subsequently smooth them, it won't work unless they're all in the same paint layer, okay? So do keep that in mind. And as soon as all your painting is done, I would lock it just so that nothing gets changed accidentally. Just like our Heightmap is locked. Now, our Heightmap, remember, it came from what we downloaded, but I could still sculpt this if I wanted to in sculpt mode. I'm not going to unless I need to. If I find an area, for example, that I wanted to flatten, like just to make a town or something like that, I could use the flatten tool and just, sort of sculpt that down. Oh, the layer is locked. So let's select this layer. I was on the wrong layer. And right now, the landscape is so large that you're basically just not seeing it. But you can see with relationship to the brush size. Let's turn the tool strength all the way up. And the brush size will make it larger. So if I had to, build a house or something, I might want to flatten a certain area. You can see what's happening there. And this is just for demonstration purposes. So let's suppose this is the place where I want to live. I can flatten that out. Sculpting now. And if I wanted to, I could go into my content directory and start exploring some of the assets that I've given you. So in one of these, there's some medieval, houses, medieval props, modular town. Let's go inside there. And some of these houses might actually be blueprints, full blueprints. So let's put our house there. Actually, I should be in select mode when I do this, when I'm placing actors. So let's see if okay. That's going to take a minute, so let me pause it. Okay, so in this flattened out area, I just dropped in some of these assets, and I moved the player start right there. I didn't paint inside here, so you're just seeing that rock scaled up too much, but of course you would take some time and paint that. And we'll get in there. And you could have a little village, all kinds of things happening. Since these houses are blueprints, it wouldn't surprise me if we could enter them. Let's find out if that's the case. Do we have a front door? I'm wondering. Not that one. Is that a staircase? No. Yeah, just go through the different assets and see. Some of them might have entrances and interiors. Well, I'm guessing that these probably don't. Okay, but if you were to go into starter content right now, even taking some of just the basic audio that's in there, just to give it some temporary vibe. Where's starter content? There, audio. We'll do starter background, okay, which is like birds and stuff like that, and some wind. But even just that, maybe some of the starter music. Where is the starter music? Put that in there. The music is not really appropriate. So what if I wanted my magic to affect this house? Which it doesn't, okay? So just think about how you'd go about doing that, all right? I'm not going to tell you explicitly in this video, but remember, when I did it to the landscape, I had to change the collision settings to block projectile and block projectile trace. These are meshes, but they are inside of blueprints, right? Each one of those is a separate blueprint. So you might have to open up the blueprint and look at the meshes and maybe explore where the collision settings are, okay? So with that, I will leave you, and I hope that you have a good time creating a big open world. Be as creative as you like, and we'll talk about the other audio stuff when we meet in class on Monday. But also, we'll probably, add some foliage and trees and things. You might as well, because this could be a portfolio item for you, for example. So if you take the time to do it really, really well, you might get something that you can be very, very proud of, share with your friends, and use to get work, right? When people see these sorts of things done really, really well, oftentimes that can lead to jobs. So I wish you all the best with this project. I realize it's challenging and there's a lot to do, but this is the way it's done. And this is why video games take such a long time to get released and made. All right, so thanks for sticking with me, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.